Property Owner Files, Season 1, Episode 4. Title: The Tenant Destroyed Everything Before the Eviction. Is being a landlord really worth it? Real estate promises cash flow, stability, and long-term wealth. But sometimes, it delivers destruction. Welcome back to Property Owner Files, where we open real stories from property ownership that went horribly wrong. Today's file isn't about neglect. It's about revenge. The tenant destroyed everything before the eviction. In the last episode, the rent stopped, and the damage followed. This time, the tenant knew eviction was coming. And instead of leaving quietly, they decided to make the landlord pay. Today's story is one of the most feared landlord horror stories in real estate, because this tenant didn't abandon the property. They stayed long enough to destroy it. Stay until the end, because what the landlord found behind one locked door turned a routine eviction into a six-figure nightmare. When the notice is served, the eviction notice was posted on the door. Legally, properly, calmly. The tenant read it and said nothing. No threats, no arguments, no emotion. That silence should have been the warning. From that moment on, the tenant knew the clock was ticking, and they made a decision. If they were going to lose the apartment, the landlord was going to lose too. Neighbors later reported loud noises late at night. Hammering, crashing, water running for hours. But nothing could be done until eviction day arrived. Still watching? What happened next is every landlord's worst fear. The walk-through from hell. When the landlord finally entered the property, it didn't feel real. Walls were smashed. Cabinets ripped off hinges. Doors kicked in. But this wasn't random damage. It was intentional. Every appliance destroyed. Every fixture sabotaged. Every repair maximized for cost. The tenant had targeted the most expensive parts of the house. Plumbing lines broken behind walls. Electrical wires cut where they couldn't be seen. Concrete poured down drains. This wasn't anger. It was strategy. And the worst discovery was still coming. The damage you don't see. Surface damage is shocking. Hidden damage is devastating. When contractors began inspections, the real cost emerged. Flooding had soaked subfloors. Mold began forming behind drywall. Structural elements were compromised. Insurance refused to cover much of it. Why? Because it was tenant-caused vandalism. The landlord realized this wasn't just lost rent, it was lost time, lost trust, and lost financial security. And then they opened the final room. If you thought this was bad, wait until you hear this. The final room. One door was locked. Inside, trash stacked to the ceiling. Food left to rot. Infestation everywhere. Rats, roaches, insects embedded into the damage. The tenant had turned one room into a biological hazard. The house was officially uninhabitable. This wasn't a rental anymore. It was a teardown candidate. Months of repairs followed. Thousands in losses turned into hundreds of thousands. And the landlord learned a brutal lesson. Eviction isn't the end of risk. Sometimes, it's when the real damage begins. The real cost of revenge. This is the story landlords fear most, not because it's common, but because it's possible. Revenge damage is rare, but when it happens, it's catastrophic. The tenant faced minimal consequences. The landlord absorbed everything. This is why experienced property owners say, tenant selection matters more than rent price. Documentation matters more than trust. And once eviction begins, preparation matters more than hope. In the next episode, we step back and ask the real question. After everything you've seen, is being a landlord actually worth it? This tenant didn't just leave. They destroyed everything on the way out. In the next file, we ask the question every landlord eventually faces. Is property ownership worth the risk? Click the next episode to open the next file. This is Property Owner Files.